Hi everyone, it's Dan Hodges, naturalist for the Johnny Appleseed Park District, with you again today. Thanks for joining me. I'm out here taking a little hike in McLean Teddy Bear Park, and my, how the forest has changed. You can see the canopy is perhaps the most dramatic change, and with all those leaves coming out, the amount of light that's reaching the forest floor is greatly diminished. So the spring wildflowers that we saw bursting out in April and May sort of begin to fade away. And while we still have green growth down here, those spring ephemerals that added so much color and beauty to the forest floor start to fade away into a more sort of summer routine. There are still a few flowers, sort of spring, more typically spring ephemerals still hanging on. Here's one. This one's called Solomon's Plume, also called false Solomon's Seal. These kind of long lancelet leaves that end in a beautiful plume of flowers. Many of the spring ephemerals are kind of headed on their way out. They've been pollinated. They've soaked up as much energy from the sun as they're about going to get, and the leaves are starting to die off. This one is cutleaf toothwort, and you can see the yellow leaves as they begin to die off. This will, true ephemeral, this will die off back to the ground, and you won't see anything of cutleaf toothwort until next spring, when the roots, which are in the soil, send up a new stalk with new leaves and a new flower. This one also has its seed pods. There are a couple of these seed pods left hanging on this cutleaf toothwort. Those will obviously spread and hopefully grow new plants. Here's a little bit of May apple, perhaps not a true spring ephemeral, as these leaves persist well into the summer. These guys have produced a flower, many of them, and that flower has since sort of begun to develop into a fruit. The whole plant, by the way, mayapple, is very toxic. I've heard it called suicide plant because of its toxicity, while the fruit, when ripe, is apparently non-toxic. But finding it ripe is often really difficult to do because a lot of animals will eat that. That's okay though, because you can't eat anything in the parks anyway. This one right here, this three-leafed plant, is called Jack in the Pulpit. Jack in the Pulpit is a really interesting plant. The first little while, it'll be a male plant producing male flowers, and eventually, as the plant sort of gains more energy reserves and is able to produce and maintain viable seeds, it'll become a female. It's harder to be a female, more energetically expensive. But here's why it's called Jack in the Pulpit, because here's the little pulpit, and if you look under, there's Jack. This little spadix is what it's called, inside of a spathe. Looks like a little preacher in his pulpit, perhaps. But this flower is really rather interesting. This one is a male, I believe. No, this one is a female, I believe. And the reason I believe that is because if you look down at the bottom, I almost confused myself. If you look down at the bottom, there is no hole. And a hole down there would give an escape for an insect that crawled inside. And if you're a male flower, you will allow the insects to crawl inside and then escape with pollen on their back to take to the female. The female, though, isn't so merciful and will often trap animals inside. You see those little nobbins down there? Those are each female flowers. Pollinated, they'll turn into bright red berries you'll see kind of later in the year. We'll try to fold this one back as nicely as we can. Jack in the Pulpit, what an interesting flower. It smells rather dank and is actually attracting fungus gnats to come and pollinate it. The males, like I said, the fungus gnats will escape and find a female flower. The females, though, offer no escape for those fungus gnats, and once pollinated, I guess they're stuck down there. So there's Jack in the pulpit, or Jill in the pulpit perhaps. Jack a little more merciful than Jill. Here's just a little bit of wild geranium starting to seed out here. This is also called crane's bill because the seed pods it produces look like sort of the bill of a crane. And as it goes to seed, it does this really great thing where these pieces here fling the seeds in what's called explosive dispersal and send those seeds kind of even a couple feet away sometimes. Well, there you have it. Well, there you have it. There's a couple of wildflowers in the forest in this late spring. Well, there you have it. A couple of wildflowers in this late spring as we move into summer in the woodlands out here at Teddy Bear Park. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to get outside.